Welcome back. I'm Tori Edwards, and you are tuning into Through Our Lenses. Here is where real people come together to share their intimate experiences from the soul. Today, we are in part 2 of being Black in America and searching for self-identity. And as I shared in part 1, I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood. And although I had exposure to a great education system and lived in a beautiful neighborhood, oftentimes the experience of being one of the few blacks in my community led me to search for self-identity, and in some instances had me afraid to share who I was as a black woman. Our guest today is no stranger to this. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Kevin Rawls. Okay, sorry, I told my feet stink, hopefully they don't, but I like to see like my socks.
We're recording.
Oh, okay.
Insert blooper here.
Blooper, okay. All right, Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
The Kevin, y'all. The Kevin.
Oh, nonsense.
My club.
Yes, my favorite club right here.
So we're A Club.
Yeah, A Club. A Club, great
A
club.
Club, you know
Why you got a hate club?
Oh, there you go.
You know.
Okay, Kevin, so for people who don't know you, tell the people who you are.
You know.
And don't forget your social security number. And
of course,
your
credit
routing
card.
number. Okay.
You know, all that good stuff. So my name's Kevin Rawls. Went to Texas State. That's how I know Tori. So, graduated in 2012. Member of Kappa Alpha Psi. Nothing special there. I do photography. So before everything happened during the pandemic, actually I moved to Houston. I'm not from Houston, but I moved to Houston to work for the Rockets first. Then after the Rockets, I did a couple radio jobs. So I ended with 97.9, and I was doing photography work and social media. So that's what I was doing before the pandemic. So now I'm kind of doing photography on the side still. But as I mentioned, I'm not from Houston. I'm originally from Austin. I was born in Arizona. A lot of people don't know that.
I didn't know that either until you said that. I was like, what?
Yeah, my parents, my dad, he's military, so he's the Marines.
Oh, okay.
We moved around a bit, but I was born in Yuma, Arizona, and then we moved around a couple times, and then from the age of 4 till about 24, moved to Austin.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned you're a photographer. He's a bomb photographer. He hits all the celebrities. What's your Instagram handle so they can see your work?
Yeah, if you want to check out any of my photography, you can go to Candids by Kev. Candids with a K, Kandids Kev. I've done just about everything. I've shot Travis Scott, Ella May, Janae Aiko, Megan Thee Stallion, Pharrell, Migos. I can keep going on, but I also do birthdays and photo shoots and stuff like that. So
he's very well-rounded. So if you need a photographer, support black businesses.
Support black business.
There you go. There we go. I have to put that little plug in there.
Got to.
Okay. So a lot of you guys don't know, actually, Kevin posted about a month ago a very heartfelt and thought-provoking message surrounding his experience about being one of the few black people in his Austin community where he grew up. For those, Kevin, who haven't seen it, do you mind reading it out loud for everybody?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Okay, so I start out with saying, today really just hits different, man. I've held it in for years. Anyone that really knows me knows I'm from Austin. I grew up there from the age of 4 to 22. Anyone who also knows me knows I'm not very fond of that place. I had great memories, but I had some terrible ones. No, I didn't grow up in a hood or a ghetto. No, I wasn't raised to use slang or the N-word. My non-black classmates thought they did though, or wish they did. I grew up around all white folks. From 4th grade until I was a junior in high school, I was always the only black kid in my classes. I remember thinking every year, I hope there's someone else black in my classes, and every time I was alone. My graduating class had 600. My senior class photo had 11 black people in it, 15 maybe out of the entire class. I grew up being told by white kids that I acted white, sounded white, and somehow they're blacker than me. I had black kids telling me I acted white, sounded white, and I wasn't black enough. and that I was an Oreo. I didn't even know what that was, and I remember smiling when a black kid had first called me that because I thought it was a nickname of acceptance. I had white folks in my classes saying the N-word in my face under their breath, but I deferred on retaliation because I'd be the black kid that beat up the white kid and didn't want to jeopardize my school record. I had teammates who purposely hid my jerseys and threw my stuff in the locker room, harassed me, but again, I deferred on retaliation because I'd be the black kid that beat up the white kid and I didn't want to jeopardize being on the team. I was just relevant enough because I was an athlete, but I was never accepted because I refused to fit in. FYI, this was Cedar Park Middle School to high school. Ask anyone black who grew up there and they can attest. I believe my parents raised us in Austin so we'd have a positive environment to grow up in and we'd be protected. For the most part, I was, but it doesn't matter where they could have taken me. I would never be safe from the prejudices of this world. I don't hate it there. I actually appreciate it because it made me proud to be black. This isn't an Austin thing. It's a growing up black thing, and it is what it is. To my white folks, white friends, white associates, we need you to step up. Understand that we did not put us here. Y'all did. You need to fix this. It's not our job, but it's our life. So we're doing what we have to do. I love y'all like I love everyone. I'm not blaming every white person, but you were born with a privilege that we never had in society, and it's been abused. Now is the time to use it for good.
Wow. That, when I read that, it was like your story was my story.
Yeah.
The Oreo incident, the non-retaliation incident, the talking about my speech, how I talk, or Oreo, black white girl, and as I mentioned in part 1, my name, I feel like I had to not go by my real name, by Notoria, to make myself fit in with my white counterparts, teammates, all of that. So what sparked you to write that? Like, why now? We're both in our 30s.
Yeah.
So why now did you feel the need to share that?
I had always felt that it was appropriate to share at some time. Well, let me not say appropriate. I felt like it was needed to share at some point. But for whatever reason, timing is everything.
That is true.
So I had made a couple attempts in the past. I didn't fully put the message out there. And, I used my platform through Instagram. And I would just put it on my story. And a couple people would weigh in. But, I mean, it didn't hit the same way.
Yeah.
It's just it wasn't really relevant at the time. A couple people paid attention to it. Oh, wow, that's really powerful. But nobody really tapped in or weighed in or commented. But I felt like this was the time. And it's crazy because it wasn't I just want to put this out there. It was triggered. Since the George Floyd thing, I've been watching so many videos online. People would send me videos on Instagram. They would share them. I was watching the news literally every single day. It was always something, protests or
it's
something.
Overwhelming. It was a lot going on.
It was a lot to take in. I'm not gonna lie. It's expected for people to take a break and just have an overload of sensitized. You know. So I had been watching it for a couple days. I watched it for 3 straight days. And I'm a pretty level guy when it comes to emotions. I'm pretty in check. And I didn't really have a reaction. I'm like, oh, that's sad, or I'm mad, or disappointed. Didn't really know what to do. But I didn't really get over emotional. And I woke up, I want to say it was May 31st to be exact. I woke up at 10:30. And I woke up and one of the first videos I saw, when I woke up, I checked my phone, and somebody sent me one. I don't know if you saw it, but it was a video where it's 3 guys. One is probably about our age, a little older, 30s. And he was arguing with the guy that was 50, 60. And he was telling him look, man, whatever we're doing, this ain't it. you know, we got to find a solution. We out here protesting, but
oh, I know. It's
got to be more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And then he brought in this younger kid. He was like 12 or 15. He was like, whatever we doing ain't gonna work. You know, you in your day, you 60. Whatever you did in your day, it's not working because we still here. I'm 30 something, and we here right now. We haven't figured it out, and we got this 15-year-old cat. So whatever we got to do, and he's talking to the younger guy like, it's up to you now.
Yeah.
Your generation has to figure it out. By the time you're your age, I mean my age and his age, we shouldn't be talking about this anymore.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, that just smacked. Like I hit a wall, and just tears. I don't really cry often. I'm not an emotional guy, but for whatever reason, I just sat in my room, just tears.
Because you probably have been holding it in. Think about it, so long. Like, it's not just this instance. Like, I looked at Facebook, and Facebook pulled up everything from 2016 when we were going through this.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you really haven't released that emotion at all.
So
eventually, that bubble had to pop.
There was the breaking point.
Yeah.
Out of all the time that I tried to share that message, I had never just reacted emotionally. Mm-hmm. And looking at that, I don't know what, for whatever reason, but it just triggered everything. And it all just came out. And I thought, today's the day.
Yeah.
I didn't just walk around thinking, oh, I'm going to finally say it, or, I'll wait another day. For whatever reason, I just thought, I have a message. I'm tired. That's really what it was. I'm tired of holding all this in, and I have something to say. And I don't care if nobody wants to hear it. It's going to be heard today. So I just put it out there. I put it out there on Instagram, and I had a couple people respond to it, and I thought this is not enough because the followers that I have on Instagram aren't everybody that I need to hear this.
Yeah.
My past is all on Facebook.
Yeah.
That's all middle school. That's all high school.
Yeah.
That's some of college. But all those people
the larger demographic on that
large
Facebook.
Demographic. Right. The older people. Like, I got parents. I have cousins. I have friends. I have church members. Like, I have everybody that needs to hear that.
Yeah. On
Facebook, and that's why I put it there. And
that's actually where I saw it, on Facebook.
Which is crazy because I'm never on there.
I rarely get on Facebook. Like, when I'm on Facebook, I post through Instagram, sort of like what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw that, I kept reading, and I'm like, I started to cry. I'm like, I'm not the only one.
Wow.
I'm not because if people look at you, and it's like, you didn't grow up in the hood, your parents are doing well for themselves, like, what do you mean you had struggles? Like, and I'm not saying that I do sympathize with people whose parents, had to make ends meet by doing some illegal things or whatever, right?
Sure.
But it doesn't minimize what I went through. My pain, I'm not trying to compare my pain with your pain. It's all pain. It's all pain. And we all deal with it in different ways. So when you said that, and I guess I had seen it after it had gotten a lot of traction. You had like so many reshares, and I started reading your comments, but it made me feel good to read your comments. And it was more of your white friends that like, I'm so sorry this happened to you. Because if you know Kevin, like, everybody loves Kevin. He's the funny one, hard working, gets things done. Like, he's a very well-rounded guy. So when you have somebody who just seems always so happy to like go through something like that, it's like it makes you pause and think. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
I think that's part of the reason why I feel like I needed to share it. I don't toot my own horn, but I do feel like I do know that about myself. I'm a pretty well-rounded guy. I'm very positive. Like, yes. I tell people all the time, I'm never really mad or upset. So if you see me upset, I'm not smiling.
It's something serious.
It's pretty clear something's bothering me.
Yeah.
So I figured if anybody's going to share this message, why not me? And it was just the time to do it. I didn't put it out there for people to relate. Like, I honestly didn't know you read it until you just told me.
Yeah.
It wasn't
like I told you this. It probably wouldn't take, but honestly, it made me think about my own experience, and that's why we came up with this.
It's just shocking to me. It really is. Like, looking back on it, I'm very glad that I put it out there. And God's timing is always perfect. Had I put that out any sooner or any later, it would not have hit the same way.
Oh, absolutely. I can say, back in 2016 when all this was going on, I don't think people were really open to listening. And I feel like people are now looking at, and this younger generation under us, there's some firecrackers. You know that video of that one girl recording her parents?
Yes.
I'm like, This new generation is a bold generation. Will call you out at 10 and 12. Like
anytime.
And so I do admire that about them. But I would say just because us younger ones, we're done tolerating BS. We're done with it.
We've had enough.
And so I do feel like, especially with my work and more companies jumping in on standing with Black Lives Matter, I felt like it was actually probably the time where people are really starting to talk and people are really listening.
Yes.
Now, I don't know. Now, there will be some people who they're hearing, they're not listening, they're not dissecting it. But I do think that people before who may have just let it go in one ear and out the other, it's just a one-off case, they're more open to hearing people's stories. It's all about just taking the time to find some understanding.
Absolutely.
But there's a couple things in your post that I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
So you talked about deferred retaliation.
Yeah.
So I actually watched a movie. Went back and started watching a lot of Black movies.
Okay.
And I rewatched The Hate You Give.
The Hate You Give.
And in the beginning of that movie, for those who haven't seen it, the dad basically starts the movie off with all his kids around the table, and he's teaching them what to do when you encounter a police officer. How do you like not hang out after dark? You always with somebody. Like, he's drilling this into his kids. And so throughout the movie, his dad, there's one part of the movie where he like lines them up.
Yeah.
Like, so the police basically take the dad, throw him outside on the ground, rough handling him, and they came out to defend their dad. And their dad basically, once everything settled down, he took them back to the house, lined them up on the yard, and say, "What did I teach you?" And made them recite something very similar to basically the rules and regulations of not, what to do when you encounter a police officer. If they're rough handling me, you don't jump in, because that could have cost you your life as well. So it made me think about that. And then an article that I read by New York Times that says little Black boys are more afraid when they live in white neighborhoods. They're more afraid to go out and experience the world. So for my question for you is, did your parents teach you about racism? Like, how did you know that you had to not retaliate at such a young age? Or were you aware that racism exists, or was that ingrained in your head as a child?
My parents, they didn't really prepare us per se. They would mention it, because you don't know any better as a child.
Yeah.
You just grow up living your life, and then in certain scenarios where I would say, "Oh well, can I go do this?" And my mom would be like, pull me aside, like, "Kevin, you can't go do that." And then at a certain age, that's all it was. Like, I just can't. Fine, that's a no. And then you get older, then it's a little more. You can't do that. You don't look like so and so.
Yeah.
You don't have the same privileges, or you can't stay out as late.
Right.
So they would always spin it, but they would never really just go
flat out and say
into it. And then as I got older, I honestly just kind of realized it myself through trial and error. I just realized there were certain things that I could not do that my other white friends were allowed to get away with.
Yeah. Did you have a lot of Black friends growing up at all? What's the blood percentage of your neighborhood? Like 70-30?
I'd say even less than that, probably.
Like 90-10,
90-10 or
90% white, 10% Black?
92, something like that around.
So did you have a lot of Black friends?
I didn't have many. It's crazy because I started out going to a private school. And actually one of my first friends, the private school actually was more of a minority. It was more so Hispanic, a little bit of Black, and then a couple white people.
Ah, okay.
But I actually felt more welcome there
than
I did when I transferred to public school in 4th grade. So my first friend was Black in kindergarten. And I'm still friends with him to this day. But once I went to public school, it was completely different. Most of my friends were white. I really didn't have a lot. Probably knew 2 or 3. And even then, they weren't like my best friends or like close friends. I just knew them.
You just knew them, and you kind of needed somebody to hang out with.
You had
know?
to.
Yeah.
But we didn't relate like that. It's crazy how it sticks with you for so long. I just realized so and so looks like me, but for whatever reason we just didn't click.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like, oh, well, I should stick with you. I didn't get that mentality like, oh, I should stick with you or stick around you because we look alike and we relate. That didn't kick in until like way later, maybe middle school or 7th, 8th grade. But young age, it was just like, okay, well, cool, I can hang with you, you can hang with me. Never saw a difference.
So when did you get the comment about being the Oreo?
Okay, I'll never forget.
And when did it actually make sense to you what that meant?
Wow. So I'll never forget. It was middle school for sure. This was at least 6th or 7th grade. I remember I liked this chick at the time, so it kind of sunned me at the time. Like, dang. I had gotten it. It was after school. We were in front of school. I was waiting for my parents to come get me, and it's crazy because I got called that by a fellow black girl.
Yeah, it's usually the black people that make that statement.
And that's what hurt me.
Yeah.
That's what really hurt me. And she was like cooler. Her mom was a teacher, but she was a little cooler, a little blacker.
Yeah.
So she was already in that crowd. And she was friends with the girl I liked, but we were all kind of kicking it after school. And I said something. And she was like, oh yeah, that's because you're an Oreo. Kevin's an Oreo. And I didn't know what that meant. You know, they were all cool and I was just hanging with them.
Yeah. You're like, okay, sure.
And I'll never forget, I was like, yeah, I'm proud to be an Oreo. I had no idea. Just it went over my
your head, yep.
And they just laughed. And I was like, you know, I didn't get it. I was the butt of the joke.
Yeah.
I'm laughing with them, but they're
laughing
at
me. Yep. That's happened to me.
And I don't know at what point I figured out what it was. I think she told. Oh, no, she told me. And I was like, what's the big joke? She was like, boy, that ain't nothing to be proud of. And I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
You know? And she told me, she was like, oh, you know, Oreo means you black on the outside and you white on the inside. And it just boom. And I was like, oh. So that's not a cool thing. And from there, it must have been something, because obviously I'll never forget that moment for the rest of my life.
So did you try to change, to adapt, to be more, to kind of fit more into black culture once you started getting that?
Absolutely. It hit me like a lead brick after that. Yeah, I remember it really clicked for me not long after I got into my first fight too. That's when everything kind of started changing. I grew my hair out. It was literally a transformation from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. I went from a bald fade to growing my hair out. Everybody was growing froze. Then I had cornrows.
Yes.
It was like, I don't know why. It was like just a generational thing.
Yeah, because I did that too. I feel like because you know it's crazy. I got the same comment, and I feel like, cause my mom is like, she was like old school Christian. You know, we can listen to rap music at the house. So you know, when she wasn't home, I started to learn like the Lil Wayne lyrics.
Absolutely.
The cornrows. You know, try to like come up with good comebacks. You know, like when you're all hanging out outside, everyone has like good comebacks, right?
Yes.
I didn't have good comebacks, so I would like Google like funny comebacks. Somebody tried to like play around and get me, or they call it jank you or whatever. And I just started I found myself trying to research to fit in with my black friends, and I look at it now, I'm like, it's so foolish, so foolish. But I think too, part of that stems from us going at each other. You know what I'm saying? Like, I felt like it was the black people who basically told me I wasn't black enough. And it also made me think of, so right when I was getting ready to go to college, right? And you get your roommate assignments, who your roommate's gonna be. So that summer, my roommate reaches out to me, and I'm like, hey, I forgot her name. It was freshman year. Anyways, she reaches out to me. She's like, hey, you know, just want to introduce myself, and what are you bringing to the dorm room? And I'm telling things that I'm bringing, and it was all good and handy, right? Everything was good. So once I move into the actual dorm, she goes, when I saw your name on the paper, granted my full name, Notoria, she's like, I knew you were black. But then when I talked to her over the phone, I'm like, maybe this girl is not black. But it was because the way I talk, you know, I'm more lively. I know how to pronunciate my words. But it was just, she grew up in a, I think the south side of Dallas, and I grew up in a, more
affluent
neighborhood. So I think for me that kind of honestly helped set the tone for me to go as Tori.
Really?
Yes, because in middle school I was going back and forth. In high school I was going back and forth between Tori and Notoria. But I think after I got that from her, and of course I want to be cool, I was like, I'm just gonna, and then of course I'm just gonna stay with Tori. And then of course, being in college and my teachers not being able to pronounce my name in general, I just said no. Tori's a name that I'm gonna go by, and I had not heard Notoria in such a long time.
Wow.
But it was just something just like that. Someone essentially calling me an Oreo and me not being okay with who I was. I mean, of course, at the time you're figuring yourself out. I tried to adapt to make myself fit in. But yeah, it just made me think about that.
And your roommate was black.
She was black.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So my question is, how did your middle school and high school experience and going through that compare to that experience meeting your roommate and her telling you that?
How did it go there? I think in high school it was always kind of divided for me. Mm-hmm. So I felt like I was in cheerleading. I did competitive cheerleading. I was a head cheerleader and the only black.
Wow.
That was an issue too.
What?
Look, we had 3 different cheerleading teams. You had freshman, JV, and varsity.
Correct.
It's about maybe 10 to 12 girls per team.
Mm-hmm.
I was the only black, and then I made head cheerleader, and a lot of people were like, how did she
get that role?
Yes. It's like, y'all just give it to her. Like, it was a really big issue my freshman year when I made captain or head cheerleader.
Oh, even worse, yeah.
The parents, a lot of their moms were like stay-at-home moms, like they were very wealthy. South Shore Harbor, people know about something. They were very wealthy, so they had a little more time on their hands to dive in kid business. So that was an issue. But I did feel like cheerleading made me cool with like the white people. And I had track. Track made me in with the black crowd, being an athlete. But I never felt like I fit in either one. I feel like I had to hop on my, pop music, Justin Timberlake vibe with my cheerleading friends.
That's so crazy.
I had to learn Little Boosie and Lil Wayne songs to be able to jump in with the track team.
Yes.
When we were on the bus, they got Lil Wayne playing it and Ludacris. I gotta know them lyrics. Otherwise, I'm gonna be sitting on the bus when everybody, singing and dancing on the bus.
You odd man out.
And I'm odd man out. So I intentionally would Google lyrics to make sure that I could hop in, to fit in. But honestly, I felt like I had to, like I think I mentioned earlier, I'm like, in a way, I felt like a light switch.
Yeah.
You had to turn your blackness on when you're with your black friends, turn it off when you're with your white friends. And in this weird way, I felt like maybe that's probably why I hated high school. Actually,
I'd hated high school.
I hated high school. Probably the worst year of my life.
Yes. Wow.
And I think that's too why I was trying the self-identity aspect. I couldn't find myself, and I will say high school is where I was very depressed. Like my freshman or sophomore year, like I broke down. Like, I went into a big depression. I think it was just a lot that was going on. But I will say, like, once I got to Texas State,
oh man,
it was only 3% black at Texas State when we got
in. At the time,
it didn't grow down. Look, now I'm like, all these black people.
Where was this when we were going? Are you serious? You swear it was HBCU also?
Yes,
they're everywhere.
I'm like everywhere, but it was 3% black. But I will say, I remember being a freshman and in the quad, which is where everybody hangs out. These ladies approached me from Black Women United. Mm-hmm. And I felt like, oh, black people. And I just gravitated. I thought you did the same thing. We were in every black organization. Every black organization. I promise you. And then I crossed Delta. I'm like, ooh, more black friends.
Blackness, more black friends.
Like I feel like I gravitated towards so much black. And I think what also made me really gravitate towards it is one of my good friends went to Southern. And I think it's my freshman or sophomore year, I went back for the Bayou Classic. And if anybody ever goes to the Bayou Classic, Southern versus Grambling, it is the most amazing black experience ever for young black
Battle
people.
of the Bands.
Battle of the Bands. You've got everything. Like, you're just... Like, it's like a mini BET award.
Yes!
Because we would be dressed to the nine, but it's just like amazing experience. And I'm like, just soaking it all in. Like, I love this. I love this. Why do we have this? So, I will say that's when I really, in college, started to want to figure out who I was as a black woman and then be comfortable with it. I felt like before I was ashamed. So, it got to the point where I would, before my mom used to do our hair in cornrows, right? And then it got to the point where I'm like, nope, I only want weave or extensions. I want that straight hair, kind of take on that European look. But it was a lot of trying to find myself. And in finding myself, I broke down. And I'm like, I never want to get back there again. I want to be happy with who I am as a black woman. And I want people to accept me. Just accept me. And if people don't, I wanted to find out how to be okay with that.
And there's nothing wrong with that either. I feel like what we went through is a lot. A lot of people can't even understand that. Like, yeah. And I didn't realize when I made that post, I was shocked. I wasn't shocked, but I was just taken aback because I didn't realize what had transpired over so many years. You don't know why you're in it. You don't know why you're in it. We were almost brainwashed because there's no time to stop. Like, I have to get along to get however the saying goes. But I have to give along to get along or whatever. Yeah. Life goes on. And I didn't have time to stop. I'm going through school. I'm trying to play basketball. I'm trying to pick where I'm going to college. I'm trying to make friends. I'm trying to be popular. Going through puberty alone and just growing up. That is a crucial time. Absolutely. It's so much coming to you at once. And I feel like as an adult, we know how to maneuver, right? When we've got a lot of things. But when you're a child, you don't necessarily have those tools that you do as an adult. You don't have those luxuries. So it's easy for people to break down. Yes. Or to either be angry, right? People are more angry because they don't know how to express themselves or how to handle with what they're dealing with. And you're looking at like you're crazy. You're the crazy black person because I'm reacting the only way I know how. I'm frustrated. Yes. But you're labeled because I overreacted. What's wrong with you? Yeah. I'm trying to figure myself out. That's what's wrong with me. And y'all I need some grace. I need some grace. Like, it's just so much to ask for. And when it clicked and I realized people were reaching out like, they were sharing their stories. Like, oh my gosh, this is the same thing for me. Yeah. Or that's so accurate. When I was growing up in Cedar Park, this happened to me. I realized like, wow, we should have been having these conversations a long time ago. We didn't have these conversations growing up. We were all segregated. Like, we didn't have cliques of black people. We didn't get together. Tell them about that post that you sent me on Instagram in Austin. What's still going on in Austin? That one town in Austin that you're saying that showing that was oh my gosh. Still segregated to this day. It's still segregated to this day. I forgot what it was. I forgot the town, but it'll come to us. We'll include it in the clip so people can read the article. But yes, it didn't come as a surprise to me because it was obviously at the peak back then. Yeah, and imagine we're in 2020 and it's segregated. Imagine what it was like back then. Nothing has changed. Doesn't surprise me at all. That's crazy to me. I met a girl on Twitter and I don't know how I found it, but somebody shared it and she had tweeted probably about a year or something ago, hey, I'm new to Austin. I'm trying to figure out where to go. Where are the black people? I don't know anybody here. So I reached out and I was like, yeah, that's kind of how it is there. I'm from there. You can go here. They built we have a place called the Domain, which is kind of like a midtownish area for here in Houston. Okay. They didn't have that back then for us there. But I was like, you can go to the Domain. Hopefully that helps. Your mother will reach out to me. From there, she ended up making a whole black brunch where people can connect. Like, it's this whole series. So, like, every once a month or however, they meet And the group, like, they would take pictures and it would go from here to here to here to here. And it was like, wow, there's actually black people in Austin. Like, it's a thing. This is 2020. We didn't have that back then.
But, you know, I was talking to my friend. I was like, you know what we need to do? Because I think for me, I'm in this, what I talked about in part one of the series. I feel like, especially being in corporate America, I don't see a lot of black women and guidance and mentorship. And so I think sometimes as black people, even the hair salon, we go there, we talk about all these shows, you know, Atlanta Housewives, all you know, Power, you know, Insecure. But I think that those are good, right? Talk about these shows. But I think that we need to have brunches and things like that we talk about real life stuff, finances, entrepreneurship.
Absolutely.
You know, and not just go to Houston, the Urban League for like be able to have, you know, intelligent conversations with our friends outside of just entertainment. Because we've got to help each other. And
we're all we have.
We're all that we have. But I think the Asian community, why are they booing? Like the Indian community, why they stick together and they have
it figured out.
They have figured out and they have those conversations in order to help their community to grow. But I know we're a bit long-winded. I do want to go ahead and wrap this up. So, Kevin, I want to ask you this. Right, so you've gone through this being one of the very few in a predominantly white neighborhood, and you've seen how it has affected you. We're now at that age where we're starting to have kids, right? What would you change, if anything, knowing the things that you went through?
What would I change today?
Yeah, so if you had kids, right?
Okay.
And like any parent, you want to look for the good schools, the good community. Like, would you, because, you know, right now, communities aren't really segregated. It's basically when your parents make money, they go to the white neighborhoods. They don't really see in the black neighborhoods.
That's true.
So would you either make sure that it's a very diverse neighborhood, which is very small, or would you continue to move your child, you know, in a white neighborhood and allow them to kind of go through the school being one of the very few?
Diversity. Off the top. Diversity. I wouldn't hesitate. I think about it all the time. If I had kids, I've been trying to move to Houston my entire life. My family, my whole family's from here. My dad's from here. My mom's from here. My sister's born here. All my cousins, my aunts, uncles, they're all from here. And I've been coming here my entire life. I just never lived here. But that was the only time I was around mostly black people. And I felt like I was family. That's really where it began, where I began the transformation.
The community aspect.
It is. That's where I began, like, okay, if I can fit in with my cousins, I can make it. And I would always tell like white folks if they try me, like, well, really, you really gonna say the N-word? You gonna try to fight me? Well, I guarantee you, if you come to Houston around my family, I bet you wouldn't try that. And that's where it all began. I would absolutely grow my kids and my family around diversity. I need them to know everything.
So if you had a job offer between Houston and Austin, right? Let's say Austin they have the best known schools in the nation. Great. Austin.
Great.
So where would you, that job offer, where would you go?
Austin, I'm out. Can't do it.
Houston.
Going to Houston. Absolutely. There's nothing for me there. You know, I grew up there. I had some great memories, but there's nothing in Austin that could convince me. And I asked my friend this the other day. I was like, if it was a great paying job and they offered you 6 figures to go move there, would you go to Austin or would you go to like a 30, 50K, but it's like the dream job to go live somewhere else? Where would you go? A lot of my friends picked the other job. There's just nothing there.
Yeah.
There's nothing there for me. Like, I've seen it all, I've done it all, and I got away from Austin so I wouldn't have to go back. Like, I know what is there and I know what's not there. I would rather have my kids grow up in a place where they feel welcome. There's diversity. I don't want them to see just one shade. Like, that's not an accurate depiction of what the world is. It's not. You need to grow up around everybody.
Absolutely.
And that's what I didn't necessarily have when I grew up. I had to learn that the hard way.
Yeah.
You know, I will teach them like, hey, it's more than just you. It's more than just this.
Oh, absolutely.
Hopefully I don't have to go into depth and say, you know, you're going to be judged by the color of your skin. I pray to God we have that figured out by then, but I'm still going to have that conversation when it's time and when they're ready.
So to that little boy who's basically you now,
Mm-hmm.
who is dealing with this, kind of trying to figure out self-identity, being maybe picked on a little bit, but how do I stand up for myself, but do it in a way where me standing up for myself doesn't get me in any kind of trouble?
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to that little boy?
Be who you are. Just continue to be who you are. Stand up for yourself. Don't be afraid to be different. I didn't learn to embrace who I was and how different I was until I got older.
Mm-hmm.
Because appropriation is one of the most vile things in America. And that didn't really become prominent until mid 2000s probably. That's when people started taking our culture. You know, it's cool to be black now.
Yeah.
It's cool to have cornrows. It's cool to talk a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I would tell them, just be yourself. Literally, be who you are. Embrace who you are. Embrace your culture. There's nothing wrong with having white friends, but there's also nothing wrong with educating them as well.
Absolutely. It's that education piece.
Because a lot of people don't know.
And that's why the cycle repeats.
That's why the cycle repeats.
Because, you know, I think for me as a child, I was afraid to educate my white friends. So I adapted to what they think I should adapt
Exactly.
to. And I think that also is why they grow up being adults and still have this negative perception of black people, right? Because I talked about this article I came across, internalized racism.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's so real. And I realized, I'm like, dang, I did that. But I think that more people would be more accepting of who I was as a black woman if I was just true to myself. When you can be true to yourself, then people can honor that.
They can respect that.
And they can respect that.
I internalized it because I was more worried about fitting in and having real friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I was scared to be myself and just be me, whatever black was.
Yeah.
I tried to have other people tell me what black meant.
Yeah. Versus me educating them.
They said me educating them.
No,
what?
yeah.
You don't even look like me. How are you going to tell me what me is?
Yeah.
But instead, I deferred and tried to fit in with what they were and their culture is, because if I was too black or too out there, then they didn't want to be a part of that. Oh, that's too black for me. Or, you know, so.
Or ghetto.
Way too ghetto.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't even make sense. I would tell me, like, no, bro, don't even fool with that. Whoever's for you is for you.
Absolutely.
Your real friends will be around you. They'll be there from the beginning to the end. And if they don't want to understand that, that's on them. That's their prerogative.
Good thing you said, if they're for you, they're for you. And if they're not, let them go. And I honestly, now that I'm older, I value that statement much more. Because there are people where I tried to, oh, they're not my friend, this, that, one, they're not my friend in high school. And those were the same people who reached out to me in college to apologize for picking on me because they didn't know themselves. It had nothing to do with me.
Nothing to do.
Nothing to do with it.
They'll show their true colors. And I waited for some people to comment. They didn't come around.
You know what? I think they will, but they probably won't do it on that public platform.
Absolutely.
It may be through a Facebook message. All mine were through a Facebook messages.
Of course.
And look, I went through high school trying to be somebody I wasn't so they would like me, and couldn't figure out why they wouldn't like me. It had nothing to do with me.
I don't even.
So I was changing for somebody who didn't know themselves.
Oof.
Now we all looking crazy. We all looking crazy. Oh man. Well, we're gonna wrap this up. I just want to say thank you guys. This is another episode of Through Our Lenses, being Black in America, searching for self-identity. If you haven't seen part 1, please click the link and go watch part 1. And Kevin, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, y'all have a good night.